think the most common question that we get, that Open Europe gets, when we go around Europe is, will the rest of Europe grant us concessions, and what will the UK actually ask for? And these are questions that are, of course, very pertinent, constantly on the agenda. And I mean, we're quite pleased to team up this morning with the Fresh Start project to discuss this issue. And as you know, the Fresh Start project has been very much leading the charge on this, leading the debate about what exactly the UK and the rest of Europe should be pursuing in terms of specific reforms to make the European Union work better for the EU as a whole, but then again also specifically for the UK. So this is a very topical issue, and let's kick off. Tim.
Can you hear me if I stand up, or should I sit down? I'll stand up. I'll stand up. Thank you very much, Whip. Right. Morning, everybody. I got involved with the Fresh Starts project, which I think is a fantastic piece of work based on some very extensive research that Andrew Ledson and others set up a couple of years ago. And I did it on the basis, and I think most of us would agree, that our current relationship with the EU is just completely unsustainable. It's unsustainable for Britain, but I think it's also unsustainable for the future of Europe as it is. And I want to see Britain as part of a radically different Europe that is largely based on completion of the single market and the trading advantages that being part of that trading bloc can be. I think we have a better chance now of a serious renegotiation of our status, which will lead to renegotiation of other countries' status within the EU than we have probably ever had. And if we don't get it, I, for one, will be voting no in 2017.
But it's also vital that we articulate to British voters what the EU brings to our country, what the benefits are, in a reasoned way and in a granular way and in a business-like way, and also as the government develops its proposals, what difference those will make to business and to families. There's a lot of emotion around this debate, and my worry, having made a lot of money from building a business and benefiting from the single market, but also being anxious that we've lost the sort of democratic underpinning of that whole project, is that we have become too emotive about it, and we need to get back to the facts. And I think the work that the Fresh Start group has done is a great boost to establishing those facts, and I would encourage the government, I would encourage the EU to spend more money on doing what the Americans do. How many jobs in each congressional district come from exports? There's a map on the US Chamber of Trade site. You can't really find an equivalent here in the UK in terms of the impact of the EU on jobs in Britain. And there's a whole set of other things that I think we could do to tell the British people what this project means, what the consequences of leaving are, and why the Prime Minister is absolutely right to be making the case for European reform for Europe and not just for the UK.
First of all, I think it remains hugely important that we continue with the approach the Prime Minister set out in his Bloomberg speech in January, as presenting our objectives as something that's not just a selfish, uniquely British interest, but as something which we believe is in the interests of the European Union as a whole, because the challenges, whether economic or democratic, are ones that other countries share, and we are much more likely to get traction for our case if we are presenting it as a means of benefiting everybody in the club and not seeking exceptions for us alone. And the PM, in drafting his speech, took a very deliberate decision early on that he was going to frame it in that fashion. Secondly, I think we need to focus, as we approach our partners, on outcomes before we then go on to precise legislative instruments. I was talking to my German opposite number a while ago, and he was fulminating to me about some new thing coming out of the Commission. It's absolutely outrageous, David. They want this regulation that's going to put detailed water quality standards required of every single municipal authority in Germany. It's absolutely ridiculous. We cannot stand for this. Now, if your immediate response had been to say to him, Michael, quite right, We should repatriate that. That's a word in the British context. It's understood and means something. To national level, his hands would have been thrown up in horror, because that's just not how German politicians think. If you'd say to him, well, Michael, that's absolutely right, the Commission is ignoring the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality, because those principles are written into the German constitution, as well as the European treaties, that has an immediate meaning for him. So you can then start to think, right, what outcome is it we want? How can we constrain the Commission's propensity to over-regulate and be too prescriptive and too detailed in what it does and rein them back? Then you've got some agreement on an objective, and you then start to hammer out what that means in terms of working practices or changes to treaty articles or so on.
So, we are not the only ones seeking change. There is a view out that somehow Britain is on its own. We're kind of isolated. Yeah, we are isolated in the sense that we are an island, insular. And that is what makes us so different from everybody else. And I was brought up in Germany, I speak German. But we are different from them. But in this instance, we are not alone. You've heard from David. He's the minister negotiating. You've heard how he's talking to others across the continent, how they actually share the same concerns as we have. But so often it's the case that they will agree with us in private, but feel it's not possible to counter the communautaire spirit in public.